afternoon to everybody. My name is Lazarus Amkeshe, and this is another edition of the Namibian The Conversation, where we unpack issues that are very important to national interest. And today, in the studio, I'm joined by Finance Minister Iipimbu Shiimi, as well as Elwis Katuwo. Elwis is an economist at Simonis and Storm. And today, we're really going to unpack the budget, the national budget, tabled by the minister this Wednesday. Finance Minister, it's very good to have you, Elwis. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
All right. Let's get right into it. All eyes have been on you, the minister, last week, giving pre-budget notes, and as well as this week on the overall budget. Maybe just tell us, 2 days have been passed since you've tabled the budget. How do you feel?
Well, this is the time when we sit back and listen to our stakeholders,
Yep.
listen to the commentaries. These commentaries are very important for us going
Yep.
forward as to how do we adjust as we go along, because with everything that you do, you need to adjust as you go along. We're just collecting all these commentaries, all this analysis, so that we feed them back into our system, especially when it comes to the midterm budget review.
Okay, perfect. Elwis, just to come back to you as well, how this year's budget, what is your overall feel about it? How do you feel about the whole budget?
Well, Lazarus, I would like to first congratulate the Minister on the budget he tabled. Quite an impressive budget given the circumstances we find ourselves in, so it's a job well done there. A brief answer to the question, my overall feel about the budget, given my pre-budget note that I've expressed an expectation of an expansionary budget that I expected to see. So perhaps slightly underwhelming in my opinion. Budget probably underwhelming. And I know it was perpetuated by the fact that perhaps the minister was trying to get back to the consolidation path that existed before the pandemic.
Okay, perfect. The minister, to come back to you, the budget that you tabled, you said the theme is boosting resilience and recovery. I think we need to ask you really, what is the state of our economy? Within your speech, you mentioned as well that last year the economy contracted, and then this year there's an expected recovery. Just help us take us through what really the state we're in, and then how the future looks as well.
Thank you, Lazarus. I think it's important to just look back a little bit and see where we were last year and where we were before last year. You know that the previous 4 years have been very, very difficult years due to drought. The commodity super cycle came to an end in 2016, and since then we have not really grown significantly. The economy was actually stagnant. And then COVID came. It found us on a weak spot, and it actually made the situation worse. So as a result of COVID, the economy contracted by about 7.3%. So that's a deep cut in output, and therefore this is something that is unprecedented. Not only in Namibia, it was a global problem. So even the global economy as a whole actually contracted by about 3.5. So what are we seeing at the moment? We're seeing that we are clawing back some of those output losses that we have lost last year. So we are expecting, if the situation remains more or less the same, these are still projections. If the situation remains the same, we are starting to see some green shoots. So this year's we are projecting that the economy is going to grow around about 2.1, around about 2%, give and take. Yeah, 2%. So if the situation remains the same, we are not hit by another pandemic, not hit by another unforeseen event. So that growth momentum will pick up, and we expect the economy to grow in the region of 3.5%. So that's more or less our outlook.
Okay, perfect. Elwis, on your side, as an economist and also in the private sector, is the stance also the same as what the minister has said? Are you expecting a 2% growth this year as well, or how first of all, in your assessment, the state of the economy, and also how do you look, how is the future looking on your end?
Well, Lazarus, as per our latest house view at Simonis Storms, we had a cap about 3.0% growth in GDP for this year. Yes, but however now the the kind of expectations we see in the actual GDP output, we don't necessarily expect that to filter very, very fast to the fiscus. And that's where we remain a bit skeptical on the revenue projections going forward. The pandemic has left many business closing down or having salary freezes and most people facing retrenchments. So that in return is what we expect to have an immediate impact on the fiscus this year going forward. So all in all, yes, although we have a better projection in GDP growth than the Minister of Finance, we expect to see some challenges of revenue collection going forward.
Okay. Coming back to you, Minister, the budget you tabled, you said it has three main domains. The first one is vaccines, the acquisition and distribution thereof. And the second aspect is to support economic recovery. And then the third one is to ensure essential public services provision. Especially, you have also touched a little bit on the drought situation in the Kunene region. Maybe just help us expand those three domains and how they really filter in this year's budget.
So, Lazarus, the biggest war that you have to win at the moment is a health war, because everything revolves around that. If we do not get the vaccine or get the population to be vaccinated, we will forever be vulnerable to COVID-19. And as you know, COVID-19 affects mobility, it will affect productivity, it will affect our tourism sectors, for instance, and all other sectors that are impacted by the fact that people are not able to move freely. So priority number one is to get stability on that front. In other words, we need to get the vaccine, we need to get people vaccinated. We can free up the economy. That's one. The second thing is that when our people are vaccinated, even foreigners and visitors will be more free to come to Namibia. Because they know that we are not going to give them the virus. So that will help to also unlock the tourism sector, for instance. So that's why that's priority number one. That's why you have seen the health sector, we maintain more or less the same level of spending. But on top of that, we have actually included an additional budget item to buy the vaccine. So of course that's ready for that. That's key. That's key for us to support economic recovery.
Yes.
The second thing, of course, we need to reform the economy in such a way that the economy is, first of all, you expand the existing production capacities. There are some sectors that have got potential, but we need to mobilize all those productive forces, free them up. Where there are some shackles, we need to remove those shackles so that we free up some of those productive part of the economies. The other part is of course thinking long term, is to look at new engines of growth. Where else can we jump into? Some of our engines of growth have been weak. Mining, for instance, it's one of such sectors. The mining, the commodity super cycle, not a super cycle, but the commodity sector may still recover. So that will help us a little bit, and then maybe some of our mines can still expand production. So we need to continue to create a conducive environment, especially for the commodity sector, because when it recovers, you also want to remain competitive, because this is a competitive game. So you need to make sure that your environment is investor friendly, because investors can go elsewhere. So that we need to continue to make those important reforms so that we can support the existing engines of growth, but also create a better environment for new engines of growth. The other one is, of course, is obvious. Government has to function as a government. The provision of public goods will have to continue, because schooling will have to continue, and therefore you need to spend money on education. Peace and stability need to be maintained, or law and order needs to be maintained. You need to support the police and the army. You need to support the basic functions of civic functions of government. People need to get their IDs and stuff like that. So those things have to continue. So and therefore you don't want to see a disruption in the basic government services, because that's what is going to make the economy tick. Because if the public goods are not being provided, it means something is missing in the economy. An important ingredient is missing in the economy, and therefore the economy will not recover.
It's very good that you touched on the fact that there's a need to revive that investor friendliness in the country. And I think, Elwis, I'm coming to pose to you. How has our business environment been towards investors? Is it that conducive?
Well, Lazarus, to be quite frank, no. Short answer, no, not quite. I think it lies within the priorities really of not only the Ministry of Finance, but the whole central government as a whole. In terms of policy and going forward, I think not so long ago there was some news covered in the local media about Namibia's business environment and especially competitiveness index, where we have went way down. And I think one of the biggest thing that the burning matter there was the ease of doing business in general. It's just so cumbersome that you have to jump through so many hoops, and then in that regard, the business environment in Namibia hasn't been that friendly. And then, of course, now once you set up all this, apart from having one of the highest tax rates, corporate tax rates in the region, we also introduced a dividend tax. So for a private investor, in an opinion, it's like saying, come set up your business here, but now we are going to tax on more of your gains, especially on the business and going forward. So in that regard, so far, no, our business environment hasn't been friendly to investors as much, but still competitive nonetheless. I think we have had these most of these bottlenecks around for quite a while now, close to over a decade, and we are still probably second to South Africa in the region when it comes to competitiveness and so forth. So,
Okay, at least you are good, but then I think, like Minister, you rightly put it, I think there is a need for an improvement on that angle. Now let's go deep into the budget. I'm really, like Elwis said at the beginning, he was looking forward to seeing a budget that is kind of expansionary. But what we saw from your tabling is, last year we tabled the 72.8 billion, and then this year a little bit down, 5 billion down. Is somebody forcing your hand?
I wonder who is the somebody who is forcing my hand.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, Lazarus, conventional wisdom is that when you are in a crisis, government should actually loosen the screws. But there's a proviso to that. So if you can afford it, yes.
It's the issue of affording.
Yeah. So
affordability.
So one side I hear as Namibians complaining about rising debt. On the other side, I hear us saying we need to expand spending. So those two things you cannot reconcile. So it means if you increase your expenditure and your revenue is down, because you don't create revenue is created by economic activities. If your revenue is down, it means the gap between revenue and expenditure is going to increase. It means the deficit is higher. It means debt is going to grow faster. So you are left with one option. If you don't have any space, fiscal space, in other words, you don't have savings, because as I said, this already found us in a weak spot. If you don't have savings, what option do you have? So either you increase your debt, and people will probably stop giving you money because your ability to pay back will be impaired, or you try to slowly reduce your expenditure in a way that is not going to harm the economy, because what we're trying to do is that, of course, capital expenditure should still continue, although of course it's not growing by a significant degree, but we still maintain a certain level of capital expenditure. What we're really trying to reduce is consumption, and going forward, that's what we need to focus on. How do we ensure that our expenditure is actually going into things that are going to help the economy to grow? Because consumption is a leakage most of the time. When I buy things here, most of the things will come from outside, and that money leaves the system. And it has left the system. It has not created additional capacity for the economy to grow. And therefore, that's what we need to curb. So the thinking is that, yes, we have a difficult, delicate balance to maintain. Our revenue is down. We need to see where we can cut, especially on the consumption side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back to you, Elwis, you said you're looking forward to an expansionary budget, and then the minister just rightly said no one is forcing his hand. But if you had to force his hand to really push for that expansionary budget, what area, if I can put it that way, would you have seen that minister would really try and increase more on the budget?
Oh, well, okay. So back then in 2016, when the then Finance Minister Kalasha Sladvan introduced the consolidation or historic measures in the fiscus, I was a bit skeptical because the approach rather was to rein in expenditure, right? So, but you know, at its basis, government expenditure usually drives up aggregate demand, right? Therefore, by bringing real GDP growth, right? Which is what the government is trying, which is what the minister, honorable minister, is trying to say, is that when we spend, then we spend into things that would rather drive economic activity, because that's what determines government revenue, right? So, if government expenditure is directed to things that will now increase economic activity, right? Then that's appropriate spending. So I was quite disappointed on the fact that when we look at expenditure, when we complain about debt in general, we don't necessarily view it as, for example, I think there was a notion of debt to GDP ratio, right? So the debt to GDP ratio, it's ever increasing, and people are just focusing on debt. But the basic thing that it's a ratio, right? It means there are two components at play. GDP is at play, and debt is at play. So if you borrow to increase the GDP, right, and hopefully your GDP growth outstrips your debt growth. Then we'll see some stabilization in the GDP debt to GDP growth. Now, not to mention a few projects. So I think about just I think a month or two ago, the Minister of Agriculture, Kalasha Sladvan, also came back and said why we some projects that were lined up for the Nakadal Dam. Nakadal Dam is starting swing now. But the government was too broke to spend into the irrigation systems that would have then had a ripple effect on crop production and the agricultural sector in the country. I would have loved to see a special provision in the government, increasing agricultural allocation, right? So in that sense, you'd want to go a once-off big investment into the Nakadal Dam irrigation system, make sure you have that up and running in the next 2 years. We could easily see returns in there. Right, because then we are increasing, we are spending, or we are borrowing to spend in things that will generate economic activity, so to say.
Okay. So
can I provide? I think I have seen people commenting on that, but I think it's important that we understand the proper context.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the minister really said we couldn't afford to start the agricultural activities around Nekatal because we don't have money. I have not seen the statement, but what I know for a fact is that the minister is given an additional allocation to finalize the purchasing of the land, and also to start with the basic infrastructure for Nekatal. So to get the land ready for agricultural activities. So I don't think it's an excuse to say we don't have money. I don't, and therefore that's why we can't get Nekatal restarted. I think there is enough provision made for the minister to do whatever he needs to do to be able to get Nekatal started. Okay,
let's park Nekatal for now. But I really just want to run through the numbers of different allocations. So we're seeing the health ministry with 8.1 billion. I think it's the highest following the basic education ministry, and then we have gender and poverty and social welfare, 5.4 billion, home affairs, so safety and social security, 5.7 billion, defense for the first time decreasing 5.4 billion. Let's pause a little bit on defense. Why was that the decrease? Why was there a decrease? Ever since then, the former minister had said there were several contracts the government had entered into with within the defense ministry that was kind of government had to provide for those, and that's why there was an increase in the budget allocations over the years. Did these contracts not come to an end, or why was there a sudden cut?
I think you must call the Minister of Defense here to come and ask him. Well, some of those contracts are still running.
Okay.
They have not come to an end. I think the biggest taker of money in defense is not really contracts. Contracts are very minute. The biggest taker of money is the people.
Salaries.
Okay. So the people part takes up probably about 90% of, if not more, maybe 95% of what we spend on defense. you know that for the past 5 years, defense has actually not recruited. Yeah, but you have people leaving the system. So this year they have actually come to a stage where they are saying we are now running out of actually human resources to be able to, for us to discharge our function. So the conversation was that, you know, we have people leaving the system, should we recruit? Our position was that given the position where the economy is, it is not the right time to recruit. And therefore we need to generate some savings because we need some savings to redirect those savings to some important sectors such as health, for instance. That's why in the budget statement I said we are beefing up our health defense, and therefore part of the money that we are taking out from defense, from the Ministry of Defense, we are actually reallocating it to the purchasing of the vaccine, for instance. So it's defense, but defense in a different sense. So that's where the savings are coming from. It's basically we have not allowed them to recruit what they wanted to recruit. Yeah.
Okay. And then going on to the numbers again, we have justice and the judiciary with a combined 862 million, public enterprises 733 million, the Prime Minister's office 417 million, National Assembly 117 million, excuse me. And then we have political parties 103 million. Does that justify that 103 million? Why are we giving politicians 103 million?
Now, the money that goes to political parties is a formula. It's based on revenue. It's 1% of revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is not something that we wake up and say, today we want to give 103 to political parties. Yeah. Yeah. So it's based on what level of revenue are we going to generate this year, and if and therefore whatever goes to the political parties will be the best. That percentage that goes to political parties.
Okay.
So the fact that revenue has gone down, that amount will be lower compared to last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
At least that's a good one.
Yeah.
And the political
I'm not sure whether that's a good one. Political parties will not be very happy with you.
And then we're seeing Agribank with a 90 million allocation, the Namibia Revenue Agency with a 79 million, UNAM 851 million, NAST 488 million, and then NASFAF 1.2 billion. Elwis, if I can ask you this, maybe you also probably funded, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, maybe you're also funded by NASFAF. Did you pay back your loan?
Yeah, he must tell us now.
Well, yes, probably funded by NASFAF. Not probably, actually, I was funded by NASFAF. That's one of the my biggest gratitude towards the government. It is quite a good system running up in there, although there are some bottlenecks that needs to be addressed in that regard. And yes, the process of them communicating to former students to start paying back the loan started about, I think, 2 years ago. They contacted me, but I haven't heard from them since. But yes, if I think one of the biggest problems with NASFAF was their debt recollection or debt settling services, which was non-existent like about 2 years ago. So in that regard, yes.
Okay, Minister, if I can come back to this question, we are seeing a lot of students. There was one that appeared in the the local media this year, just this week, that he was unable to get funding, and then all of a sudden NASFAF came on board to say we are going to provide these students with funding. Can you, this 1.2 billion, is there a way we could really ensure that this 1.2 billion really goes to the correct people and on time? I think last year we saw students demonstrating as well that they needed the refund money, they needed tuition money was paid late. What is really the issue with NASFAF?
Well, I wish you could call them to come and talk to them. But what I can mention is that NASFAF is being restructured at the moment. Cabinet took a decision that first of all we need to review the funding policy and who qualifies. The benchmark was actually reduced. I'm not sure whether the Ministry of ICT has actually announced this decision by Cabinet. Because previously, for you to be able to qualify for funding, your parents should earn not more than 750 150, if I'm not mistaken.
150, I think.
Yeah, no, I think 750,000 or 700.
Okay.
It has now been reduced to 500.
Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, the people who have got a high income, whose parents have got a high income, will not be able to qualify. Yeah, that's one. The second thing is that now NSFAF has been told to strengthen their collection system. So hopefully they are going to speak to Mr. Katuwo soon. and thirdly, we actually want to restructure NSFAF in such a way that the collection part will become the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. And maybe there lies an opportunity, because if somebody starts working, we can also look at the text database and reconcile those, and then we can say, this gentleman has started working now, so that they can actually, NSFAF can start to collect their money. So we are going to look into all those, and what I also want to see one day is that NSFAF should be able to, register their applicants, or in fact admit their applicants, before the academic year starts, so that when a child goes to the university, they already have registration money, so they don't have to look for registration money to register, because that's currently what is happening. You apply it at NSFAF. NSFAF will give you a letter of an acknowledgement. That way you are able to register. The amount that you are going to pay is going to be lower than somebody who doesn't have an acknowledgement letter. But it's still a substantive amount of money that you have to find somewhere. So my expectation is that one day we'll be in a situation where, if you are admitted by NSFAF, NSFAF should be in a position to give you registration money, and therefore you can register. And therefore this issue of paying towards the end of the year, when you are done with the academic year, it doesn't make much sense to me. People should actually get, if you have accommodation, you get your allowance throughout the period, so that you can settle your bills on time. You have books that you need to buy, so those things have to be given, during the year, not at the end of the year, when many of the students actually just use money to buy nice cell phones and buy booze.
Okay. Students, you've heard, no buying booze with NSFAF money. Comrade Minister, in Parliament, you're not in Parliament, so I can't call you comrade. But to come back to the debt question, you said in your speech that debt is expected to reach around 140 billion at the end of this fiscal year. I think, let me start with you, Elwis, first. How bad is 140 billion?
Okay, just before we go to 100, in fact, there's something that we are going to issue a correction. Okay. Yeah, and you'll probably see the statement coming from Tonateni. We just spotted that some of our tables actually didn't have correct numbers. Okay. So debt is, I think, it's going to be around about 126. 126 now, moving I think to 130, and then 140 something there. So the 140 is actually the outer year. Okay. Yeah. But that will be corrected. I believe the statement will come out today. Okay. Yeah. But it's still a big number. The direction of travel is the same. So I think So it's a magnitude.
Well, to answer your question, yes. I would like us to go back to the numbers that you're running. So it's one thing to look at them, as by, I think the minister terms them by vote, right? So the office of the president gets this much, minister of that gets that much, right? But if there's another classification that's very important there, which is the classification that goes by the different expenditure groups, right? So where you have like the wage bill, personal expenditure, and so forth. So I think what really needs to be commended here, or to be given credit to the minister, is that we're seeing for the first time that wage bill sees a contraction. So I think over the mid-def it averages a contraction of about 0.2%, right? And currently the contraction, according to my numbers, stands at 0.8%, and then 1.4% contraction in the wage bill. How that's to be achieved, perhaps is the lack of recruitment that the minister spoke about the defense, which always used to get a big chunk of it. and also the transfers to public entities and departmental government departmentals.
In Namibia.
Yes. That also averages about a contraction of 6.8%. So in that regard, and this is in the operational leg of the budget. So in that regard, yes, it's commendable. You see the step in the right direction from the Minister of Finance. They have obviously listened to the private sector economists, trying to tell them, rather grow expenditure in the developmental side and trying to rein in on the operational side. With that being said, I'm not sure, maybe the minister is here now. Under the developmental side of the budget, there is a 2.4 billion allocation for vehicles. 2.4 billion, all right? Now the total allocation to economic affairs in these current years stands at 5.3 billion, the same as the defense.
Yes, same as defense,
Right. So now if in the economic affairs, you see right about that, I think close to 1.2, 1.3 billion is to agriculture and agricultural activities and forestry and so forth. So all that in the national accounts is like grouped into the primary accounts. But you see that relative to vehicle expenditure, that's at 2.4 billion, although it's not in the operational budget, so under that you'll see nothing. But if you go to the development budget, I would like perhaps to have some clarity there where our priorities lies. And now, with that background, I want us to revisit the debt. So that kind of debt, yes. But again, it's relative to what are you borrowing that debt for? Is it relative to finance more vehicle financing, or to finance the wage bill, or is it to finance the public entities? If that's the case, then that's very concerning. That's alarming. But if it's to finance, to broaden our revenue base, and more importantly, to finance economic activities, then perhaps that can be better received. Because I think at this point in time, if you look at it for the current year and going out to the next fiscal year, I think the deficit, or not necessarily the deficit, but the financing need, right? The financing requirement of the government is larger than any single revenue item. So if you just singly look at tax revenue, or you individually just look at SAGU revenue, which used to account about, I think it's now stands at 42%, all those revenues in absolute terms are less than the financing requirement for this year. So in that regard, I think we should be worried about where the debt is going to.
Minister, you heard we should be worried if we are not spending in the correct way. Quick question on the IMF loan. Where are we now? Are we expecting to get that money soon, or when exactly?
Yeah. So I think that we are continuing with the conversation with the IMF. I think we are making great progress. So we are waiting to hear from them in the next 3 weeks or so. Okay. So we're quite positive that we are making good progress. Yeah. So I think as soon as we hear from the board of the IMF, because ultimately this application will have to go to the board, and we're quite positive that the board will respond positively. Yeah. So I think what is important is that, because I hear people saying that, the defense is getting so much. Well, why don't we just take money from defense and put the money here? In this sector. This is really a journey. I mean, when you say defense has got 5.4 billion, as I said, 90% of that is people. So unless you're saying I should wake up today and go to the Minister of Defense to go and fire people there, so there's no flexibility. There's no way that you can actually realize savings there. You only realize savings when people are leaving the system, unless you want to fire them. But firing them is just going to make the situation worse. And just adding to the army of the unemployed that are already there. Or you're going to pay them out. Now, if you're going to pay them out, it means you have to find cash to pay them out. So it's not a straightforward situation, because I hear people complaining, why, just take the money from defense? How do you do that? Yeah, so I think we need to have the right context to understand these things. Yes, with regard to debt, as we said, the only way that you can actually contain your debt is to grow the economy. So that's why we're trying really to push for structural reform so that we can get the economy to grow, and also rein in your non-productive expenditure. And that's what we have been trying to do. Obviously, there could still be opportunities for more, but when it comes to things like, the wage bill, for instance, that Mr. Katuwo talked about, the strategy has been don't recruit only when it's really critical. So that's why you see the wage bill coming down. I have already given you the example of defense. Mr. Katuwo, I'm not sure about, in fact, the position that we have taken is that the government is not buying any vehicle. So what you probably have seen in the development, because the vehicle part, like my car, that will be operational. So you will not see that in the development budget, because that's really a consumption item. That's how it's counted for. So what you probably have seen there is some equipments for, you know, some important agricultural activity or something. But I need to look at that, because the development budget is compiled by the National Planning Commission. But the principal position we have taken is that government is not buying any car. Ministries are not allowed to buy cars unless it's really very critical. But we have not approved budgets for cars. As you can see, even the ministers are actually driving very old cars.
Not for census, maybe. But either way.
Yeah, so I think we need to drill deeper in what you have seen, those numbers that you have seen there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There's one question. It's even important that you mentioned the issue of unemployment. Is there another 750 coming for the public, those that are unemployed, as you did when COVID started? Should we expect another 750?
The answer is no, because you know the 750 came because of the lockdown restriction. Yeah, and the logic was really that you have people that are in the informal economy, and now we have told them to go home. How are they going to survive? How are they going to make sure that there is bread on the table? So that's why the idea was hatched to give them something so that they can sustain themselves. But now the economy is open, so they should be they are able to engage in business activities. Of course, the income level in the country has fallen, and they may not be able to make the same business as before. But at least they are able to go on with their lives and go on with their businesses, and therefore there's no more a justifiable reason for us to pay them a 750.
Okay, let's talk to the issue of the Anti-Corruption Commission. There has been talks again in the media towards the end of, I think, the beginning of this year and towards the end of last year as well, that the ACC was underfunded. I think this year's allocation to the ACC was around about, let me just get the correct number. 60-something million. Yeah, 62 million.
62 million.
Is that sufficient for them?
That's what I have read in the Namibian.
Is that sufficient for them? I think it's the ACC budget. I think one of the key cases that is being dealt with by the ACC now is the fish rot case, and I think it's a very big case. But if you compare it with other agencies, that I'd say I don't want to reduce their importance. Such as, for example, the new development board got bigger budget more than the ACC. Are you saying is that all we will give the ACC? Because I think maybe mid-year they're also going to come back and say we don't have enough money. Was that budget sufficient?
Well, I think let's explain it this way. First of all, I read the 62 in the Namibian today in the editorial. But you know what was a bit surprising is that in my budget statement I actually gave two figures. Yeah, I gave a 62, but I also said in the budget statement, this is in addition to the 11 million that was given a few days ago from the contingency budget. Why did we do that? So the ACC came back saying that first of all we agreed on the ceiling of 62. Then they went back and unfortunately they came to the media first before they came back to us after we gave them a ceiling. They came to the media, and when we picked it up in the media, we called them and say, "What's happening here? If you need additional money, why are you not talking to us? Why are you talking to the media?" So then we started talking. So we asked them that how much do they need. Eventually they came with a number of 17 million. After looking at those numbers, we agreed that 11 million can actually could actually be enough. So we said instead of waiting for next year, we actually have money in the contingency budget now. So to increase that ceiling is going to mess up our numbers for the next budget year. Let's give you the money now, keep it in your accounts, and you can use it. So in total, the ceiling for next financial year for ACC is 62 plus 11 million. So I think it's 70.
About 73.
73. Yeah, so that's the correct figure. And that's what the Namibian should quote.
Yes, it's 73 million.
Yeah, Namibian should stop complaining about that.
It's not a complaint, it's a concern. But either way.
But again, the ACC should look at their own our own needs. Yeah, because given their current structure, that's more or less the money that they were given. It's not that they asked for more. Yeah, but if you have to ask for more, it means you have to expand your structure. You need to say, I need more people, and you need to justify that. And of course, that's not the baby of the Minister of Finance. Yeah, if you want to get more staff, you go to the Public Service Commission. That's where you go and justify your case. Yeah, yeah, that you need to expand your structure for ABC reason. So you don't start with the money. You start somewhere else. Okay. So once that is approved, then we look at the money. Yeah.
There's this I'm going to pose to you both. There's a tendency of several ministries that tend to return money back to the Ministry of Finance. Are you encouraging that that they should retain? And I think on one end, I think I'd also like to see when these ministries return money to Treasury, what is really the cost to the economy? Because ideally, you'd want to see that money is spent and then the economy gets moving. But how do you balance it? First of all, Minister, do you approve of them sending money back? Don't you just want to tell them this year, please don't return any money, please spend all that you have?
Well, a good budget rule is that you must be able to execute your budget. Yes. Yeah. Because that money was given to you for a reason. Yeah. You were going to use this money in a way that is going to help the economy in one way or another. Yeah. So if you have not done so, it means something which was meant to be done was not done. And it means you have left a gap there. Unless you realize that in the middle of the process, this thing is no longer important. And then therefore it's not wise to spend this money. Yeah, under certain special circumstances that can happen. But as a general rule, you actually want to execute your budget as much as possible. Yeah, you want to see 100% execution rate. If anything, people say the variance should be about 5%. Anything beyond 5% of your budget, either overspending or underspending, it's something that people are going to frown upon. Yeah. So we don't encourage that, but of course we also don't want to encourage people to spend money unwisely. Yeah, if you realize that this money should not be spent, it's better to return it. Yeah, yeah. To say I made a mistake, I thought I was going to implement this, I realized it's not important, so let me return the money. So that way you are saving government money. But if you are retaining the money just because you have actually failed to implement, then you are actually creating a problem for the economy.
Well. My take is quite slightly different. Because the trend have been that over the last, I want to say over the last decade, you'd see the execution rate of the development budget substantially low. Substantially low. And then that happens every time. And then come mid-F, you always see reallocation from the development budget which was highly under executed back to the operational budget. So in that regard, I think perhaps the ministers or the portfolios have seen that over the years, it was possible to reallocate from their development budget, which, mind you, they're taking away from future earnings, right? From the development budget back to operational budget. So they will spend recklessly in terms of operations, right? And then come mid-year, they run back to the fiscus and say, look, unfortunately, we have spent more than what we're supposed to. We've almost reached the ceiling of our operational budget. But look, we only have a 10% execution rate on our development budget. Is it possible to reallocate the fund? And it's always been the case. Always it has been the case. So I think for the minister to allow that to happen has kind of actually encouraged a deliberate under-execution on the development budget, in my personal opinion. So in that regard, it comes back to perhaps set the ceiling, and if it's not, if the development budget is not executed, there's no reallocations. Perhaps it's only reallocation to the next budget, but not an increase in the operational budget ceilings for the ministers from development. Yes, I would have liked to see such.
Okay. Yeah. Again, just information there. We actually very strict on reallocation. I think that the Director General of the National Planning Commission does not allow reallocation anymore. Okay. You can reallocate from development to development, but not from development to operational. So if you look at the execution rate, it's still it's about 80%. I think for the development budget. Is it good enough? I think not too bad, but of course one would want to see it in the region of 90-something percent. Yes. Yeah. So I think going forward, those are the kind of numbers that we want to see. But we are very, very strict in terms of reallocation to to operational expenditure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at the issue of taxes. I think one of the statements from your speech was that corporate tax is going to reduce. The trend has been a 1% drop always. I'm not so sure if you're going to see that. But other than the corporate tax that is set to reduce, what other new taxes were introduced? I think there was a statement on sanitary pads, VAT on listed asset managers. Can you maybe take us through to the tax proposals that came through the budget?
I think we have mentioned them all. I think, yes, we have made a commitment that we are going to consider reducing company tax. And the quantum will be revealed in the midterm review. So let's wait for the for the midterm review. We have also increased the allowable deductions. Yeah. So that's also some kind of a tax flexibility that we have created to encourage more people to save. Because now you get a tax benefit, a higher tax benefits if you put money in a pension fund or a educational policy. Yeah. The other one you have mentioned is the tax on sanitary pads. Again, when we were consulting with different stakeholders, we also could talk to you, Lazarus. So the civil society kept on emphasizing the need to zero rate sanitary pads, because it's important for the girl child. So we thought that was a very strong point that they have made, and we thought that is something that we need to consider. So we consider that. So that's why we made it as part of the tax reform proposals. But then we have introduced new taxes, but for equity purposes, for dividends, for instance. Already, if you are a foreign shareholder, if you get your dividend, a certain percentage is actually deducted. But if you are a Namibian shareholder, when you get your dividend, I think it's deducted. So we thought we need to equalize. Also, when it comes to VAT on asset managers. So if you manage assets that are not listed on the stock exchange, you pay VAT. Yeah, but if you manage assets that are listed on the stock exchange, you don't pay VAT. So we thought there is no equity there. There was no fairness. So therefore we had to equalize. Yeah, it's not that that's a new tax. It's basically the principle is already there, but it was not fair for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elvis, do you think the new taxes, and I think that should be our concluding remarks. Time is also not on our end. The new taxes, the tax, the reduction in the corporate tax and also the dividend tax, help us, private sector-wise, is that fair, especially on tax on dividends? And also, how do you welcome the possible reduction in corporate tax?
Well, highly welcomed, right? Okay. Yes, highly welcomed. But I think we are now in a position where the minister finds itself in a very precarious situation, whereby you would expect for now, right? You would expect going forward, the budget deficit that was raised by the pandemic would somehow be funded to a certain extent by increasing taxes in the future. But the fact that we had such high tax rates, maybe it should have been more prominent for the ministry, a priority for ministry back then to try and make our tax environment more competitive. And in terms of the individual taxes, I would have expected to see at least the adjustments of the tax brackets by inflation at the very least. I don't think they were revised like in maybe over 5 years now. So perhaps that would have been highly welcomed. But all in all, yes, the tax or the trajectory where we're going. So remember, this is the first of many, hopefully, right? So we are in the right direction. This is a step in the right direction. I would expect the Ministry of Finance now to pick momentum on trying to loosen the tax burdens on individuals and corporates.
Okay. Final question, Minister. You said in your speech, we owe it to our future generation to create a better Namibia for all. Is this true?
I believe so. I strongly believe that, that all of us share that responsibility to do what is necessary to create a better future for for the future generation.
Okay.
And therefore, whatever we do at the Ministry of Finance, whatever we do in your role, I think we should all carry that responsibility. Our view is that I think we are at the right time now. We're seeing a lot of reforms happening in the economy. Maybe the momentum is not strong enough, but I think it's picking up. On the tech side, we're trying to reform. I think the new NAMRA is going to be a new experience. Yeah, so we're very confident that it's going to be a new experience. Yeah. It's an experience where the taxpayers is going to be the epicenter of that institutions in terms of education, in terms of customer service, but also teaching the taxpayers to discharge their responsibility of paying tax. Yeah, so that's one. And on the investment side, I think Mr. Katuwo has talked about the reforms to ensure that we increase the ease of doing business. So the creation of the investment promotion board, I think it's a step in the right direction. To equip it with the right people, I think that's now the challenge that we have to undertake. And the number of reforms that we are looking at, and that time when we had a discussion the other day, we were talking about looking at really how to transform the economy, looking at new areas. I think I'm excited. I mean, of course, it's still a difficult time, but we just need to increase that momentum. I think we know more or less what needs to be done. It's a question of doing it and doing it faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Katuwo, final remarks.
Well, going back to the budget, because I think it should serve its purpose. We don't get so many platforms to interact on one. So yes, I would like to applaud the minister. My final remarks is perhaps to now pay attention to what I've spoken about. So there's that multiplier, government spending multiplier effect in the economy. And when you look at absolute numbers, or rather ratios, you'd know that there are two components at play, and not only focus on one. Obviously, expenditure was more immediate to you. If it's the debt to GDP, you wanna control your debt. It's much more easier than controlling the GDP. But I want to emphasize on the general public that running a country or an economy's budget shouldn't be the same as running a household budget. Where you don't necessarily just spend more than you earn. I think for an economy, you probably ought to take chances, and those chances perhaps will drive or bring about economic growth.
Okay, thank you so much, Finance Minister. Any final words?
Well, I think the final word is really to say that for a long time, government has been driving the economy, and government's role is actually not to be the investor. The government's role is to be an investor in public goods. And what are the public goods? Roads, railways, water infrastructure, and things like that. So we have seen it in between 2012 and 2016 when much of the momentum came from the government. But that's not sustainable because government is funded by private sector. If private sector is not growing, it means there won't be any revenue coming in. So the emphasis now is ready to shift. That growth should be driven by the private sector. The government's role is, again, to invest in proper public goods that are going to support that momentum. And that's what we want to see. And therefore, we want to encourage our private investors, Namibian investors, but also invite foreign investors to come and partner with us so that we can increase that momentum for growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Finance Minister, and thank you so much, Elwis, for coming through, giving your insight on the budget and just how the economy is, where we're at, where we're going, and the need to create a better Namibia for all of us. And that was it for today. Thank you for watching the Namibian Conversation. And until next time, cheers.